Seems like time just be flying by and everything like that because it is already Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. So we're almost already through the fourth month of 2026, and May is just around the corner, which means a lot of people will be celebrating graduations as well as celebrating Mother's Day and a number of other events that are very important in May, including those lovely May flowers and all along those lines. But there's a number of things taking place in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV's World Edition. And we've got a very special guest that'll be sharing an important story that is definitely of concern to a lot of people and all along those lines. But first, let me get to just a couple of the news items, and then I'll bring in Tony King, and she's got some things that she wants to share about a very important issue and a scam that is going on and all along those lines. Trump is reviews peace plan, and UN is calling for the Hormuz to reopen. U.S. crude oil tops $100 on report. Trump dissatisfied with Iran's proposal to open Hormuz. Trump rejects Iran's latest proposal, and that is something that is going on as he is skeptical of Iran's Strait of Hormuz proposal. And the United Arab Emirates announces withdrawal from OPEC. So they are leaving OPEC effective May 1st. And the UAE will quit OPEC in a blow to the world's leading oil exporters as Iran war is rolling the energy sector. So UAE leaves OPEC and OPEC Plus in major blow to global oil producers group. So they might be starting their own group or doing something separate, but we'll be finding that out as well. Gulf leaders to meet in Saudi Arabia to discuss response to the Iranian strike. So Saudi Crown Prince welcomes GCC leaders ahead of Jeddah summit. So Gulf leaders to hold consultative summit and amid regional tensions. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. So lots going on in that whole war around Iran and the United States. And of course, there's still things going on in Ukraine as well. Deadlock over Iran's nuclear program and the Strait of Hormuz is crippling peace efforts, is what people are saying, as Rubio appears to rule out a new Iran offer to end war. So Rubio also has dismissed the Iran peace proposal and stresses the nuclear issue. So that's something that people are talking about as well. Violence escalates in Colombia with dozens of attacks before the presidential vote. So there's a presidential vote in that South American country. And Kim Jong un confirms soldier self blasting policy in Ukraine. North Korea unveils memorial for troops killed in Ukraine war. North Korea's Kim Jong un reaffirms his support for Russia, and Russia and North Korea agree to long term military cooperation. And Columbia Climate Conference highlights lack of financing for shift from fossil fuels. Nations meet to discuss fossil fuel exit as Iran war drives up prices. Clean energy switch must not be an excuse to plunder indigenous lands, says the leaders of the countries that are meeting over there. 60 countries are meeting in a plan about phasing out fossil fuels, but the U.S. is not in this particular meetings, at least not right now. And definitely, there's, like I said, the U.S. and Iran clash at UN after Tehran gets a nuclear non-proliferation role. So the war on Iran is eroding nuclear non-proliferation. So that is something going on as the U.S., UAE, and E3 object to Iran's UN NPT nomination. So that is something that is going on the global standpoint as well. And Trump pursues new import taxes to replace the tariffs the Supreme Court rejected. So definitely pro-tariff groups up the ante on 301 S's. So definitely that is something that is going on in the world stage as well. So, and Ukraine hits Russia's Talops oil refinery again, causing new blaze and evacuation. And Russia ships the most crude in over a month as port attacks ease. But Ukraine did hammer the Russian Black Sea oil facilities. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And Abbas Araghchi meets Vladimir Putin amid stalled peace talks. So Trump unlikely to accept Iran's latest proposal to end the war, according to what sources had reported yesterday, and all along those lines. So like I said, lots going on in the Middle East, in other parts of the world, including even in Africa, because I did hear that there was some of things going on in that space as well. Matter of fact, Mali attacks Russia's African core, confirms withdrawal from Kidal. So Mali's defense minister, Sadio Kamara, was killed during a coordinated attack. get to a couple of things going on in the United States, and I'll bring in my special guest for today, see what they've got to say about a very important issue as well. And we're still having people investigating the White House correspondent shooting that took place a few days ago. And of course, we still got things going on with the U.S. and the whole notion of what's taking place there as well. So there's a lot of things going on in that space. And a lot of people are talking about the visit of King Charles to the United States as well. So this is part of a 4-day visit. I think he's in day 2 and all along those lines. And definitely a lot of folks are covering a lot of these issues and all in that space. So, and officials are assessing the damage after a fatal North Texas storm. So in Dallas weather, 2 were dead after North Texas tornadoes and severe threats return this week. So definitely that is something that people are talking about as well. And Donald Trump criticizes Norah O'Donnell in 60 Minutes interview. So I did watch that interview, and Trump lashed out at 60 Minutes for asking about the gunman manifesto allegations. And he said, "I'm not a rapist," as he lashed out at the shooting suspect's manifesto in a testy 60 Minutes interview. And it was definitely testy. I can attest to that because I was watching it and all along those lines. But I'm getting ready to bring in my guest, Mr. Tony King, who is definitely interested in Medicare fraud. And there's a lot of concern about Medicare fraud and all along those lines. So definitely, if you can share a little bit about your own research and some of the things that you found out, because I was very fascinated that it is a major issue. We know that there's a lot of scams out there that are impacting our elderly. I'm in my early well, been ready to cross into the mid 60s and everything like that. But my parents are in their mid 80s or getting ready to cross into the mid 80 range in the case of dad and everything like that. I think mom will be there in another year or two and everything like that, because it'll be 64 for me in July. But I was just wondering your take on how big of an issue this is for those that are elderly, but I'm sure that it's also impacting people that are in their families as well, because we do know that Medicare fraud and even Social Security fraud and other kinds of fraud can impact our families as well. So if you can just share a little bit about your research and what you've been finding out.
Well, what I can say is I'm from Texas. So I know you're in New York, correct?
North Carolina.
No, you're in North Carolina, so you're a Southern guy. Well, I'm in Texas, and so I'm an hour behind you. So
Right.
we're lucky that I got up and I got some makeup on, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
I like to have fun, so I'm not your typical person that you're going to interview.
Right.
And what I noticed about somewhere on March 5th, I received a video from Medicare.gov, because I'm on Medicare. I use it all the time. And I received a video telling people that there's now, you need to protect yourself because there's fraud going on with Medicare. And then a week later, a client called me and she had gotten a letter saying that her Medicare card had been changed. And we called Medicare about it. And they said that there was over 1.3 million people that had been scammed. I personally think it's more than that had received the fraud. And they had decided that they needed to get a new Medicare number. So everybody was getting a new Medicare card and a new Medicare number that was coming. And it was all going to start as of April the 14th. So technically, it started a little before that. I didn't realize that my sister was in the middle of all this scam.
Okay.
And we ended up having a home health company come to the house to visit with her because Tina has special needs. And the home health company called me and said, "Your sister has a new Medicare number." Well, we had never gotten a letter. We had never gotten the card. And here it came. I looked on her Medicare.gov account. I looked at her Medicare card, and it was totally different. So I wrote an article about the Medicare fraud, and it is huge. Last year, over 60, not million, but $1 billion were sent to people that frauded Medicare. and how they can just send money out without checking on these people, I have no idea.
Yeah, that
I
makes
don't
a lot
know
of
a
sense.
clue.
Yeah, it's really crazy how they're doing that and everything like that. I know from reading some of your material and everything like that, that you asked a question about whether you need your original citizenship paperwork to enroll in Medicare. So I was wondering if you could talk about that as well, because I do know that
Well,
there
I
are.
can talk about that. I can talk about that at the end, but I want to finish with this fraud situation because there's things that people need to do in regards to fraud. There's what they need to do is number one, if you have someone call you and they're asking for your Medicare information, hang up on them. If you don't know who's calling you, don't answer the phone. These
Right.
are call centers from all over the world that's calling us. Right now, there's 69 million people on Medicare. I can't tell you how many calls I get a day.
Well,
The scammers are coming all over the place. There is you get a information from Medicare quarterly, and it shows all your summary notices that Medicare has paid for. Well, you can go online and check it. And you need to go online at Medicare.gov and open you up a Medicare.gov account and check what's been charged.
right.
That's how I found my sister's. She was charged over $9,000 it was 3 months that it was charged. It was from April through, I believe, September. Maybe that's 4 months. And there was no doctor's name in there.
Mhm.
I sent you a copy of the bill. There was no
Right.
doctors. There's no doctor in there. It was just urinary catheters. So the main charge that the fraud is about is urinary catheters or something that's durable medical equipment, which is your wheelchairs, your walkers. I mean, they're just charging for it. And there was no doctor's name there, but Medicare went ahead and paid it. How can
Wow.
they pay a bill if they don't know who it is?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I can't pay mine.
Yeah, that makes sense. They got to have the correct information, and it sounds like there's a lot of mismanagement from the hospitals. And I'm actually in North Carolina, like you said, and of course we're a leading pharmaceutical state and everything like that. I know there's some pharmaceuticals in Texas as well, but definitely North Carolina is known as a major pharmaceutical company. So you would think that they would be more on top of these things. Our medical
Well, it's
community,
not it's those companies are because they're in compliance with Medicare.
right?
But the ones that are doing the fraud, they're not a company.
Right.
And yesterday I was on the Fox station here in the Houston area, and they called the office in Denver to find out what's going on. So Tina's fraud, my sister's, was out of Denver. I've got the invoice that shows what the fraud was. But the people that contacted me that are my clients or their friends, theirs was out of Florida. So
Wow.
it's coming from all over the country, but they're billing Medicare. Medicare just went ahead and paid it. They didn't need to do that. People need to make sure that they guard their Medicare card. You don't give your number over the phone. Social Security, the IRS, and Medicare will never call you. They'll
Right.
send you a letter saying that they need to talk to you.
Right, and that's part of the scam that many scammers have, including from those call centers. I know that they will try to find a way to get your number or to give those numbers and everything like that. But I did know that even the IRS will not actually make cold calls. But a lot of times people don't realize that, and they are afraid that when they get those calls, they are panicking, whether that's Medicare or whether that's the IRS or whether that's a number of other government agencies. So then they are given information that they probably don't need to be given. Matter of fact, that they definitely don't need to be given because they're giving it to scammers and all along those lines. So you said a lot of these scammers are coming from all over the world, and you probably find them from Russia, the Asian countries, and a number of other places as well. So I'm just wondering where some of the research you're finding as to where the scammers are coming from.
The scammers are coming from all over the world. I mean, you don't know where the scammers are coming at all. But what they have, if you Google fraud with Medicare, is showing that since Medicare got started on July 30th, 1965, there's been over $600 billion that it's been scammed. That's our tax dollars.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, that's why our Medicare goes up. And Medicare is important. If someone needs to come to MD Anderson for cancer treatment, original Medicare is what they open their arms up to right now. They will not take an HMO. So you've got different, I mean, when someone's sick, they want the best that they can get. And that's, if anybody has a question, they can always contact me. And I don't know whether you're going to show my number or anything. But
we can do that.
My email is info, INFO, at TONISAYS.com.
And I can make a banner about that and definitely have that rolling across the screen and everything like that. So we can, and also put the number out there as well.
My phone number is 832 to the office. Don't give them my cell number. That'll go crazy. My number to the office is 832-519-8664. But I mean, this is very important. I mean, I was surprised.
Yeah, it's a very important issue, and more people need to get involved in it and learn more about it and all along those lines. I've got one of my regular panelists, and I've got another guest that I'm bringing on as well, but I do want to bring on, and this is a different issue, but it can be played into it as well. But we know that there's been a lot of things going on with the war, and I'm getting ready to put in your banner information and all along those lines. But I know that there's been a lot of conversations about the various wars and everything like that. So I'm going to bring in one of my other guests because he's also about trying to make sure that we don't have as many wars as we do. So I want to hear a little bit about his story too, but I don't want to lose you, Tony. So I also want to see more about what we can get in your conversation. But I do want to bring in my gentleman that's going to be talking about priests against genocide and all along those lines. So if I can get him up there and everything like that. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing fine. Thank you.
Share a little bit about what you've got going on as well, and your name and everything while I create this banner for Miss Tony and what she was talking about with Medicare. But I know we've had a lot of priests, including the Pope and the Archbishop, that have talked about the need to have more peace and less war going on and everything like that. So I'm thinking that your organization is part of that effort to have us stop some of these wars that are going on.
Yes. I don't want to interfere with the interview that you are now carrying on.
No, it's back and forth because it's a new show, so we have more than one guest. So I just wanted to have you bring some of your awareness, and then we'll have Rick will add questions to both of you. So just share a little bit about what you've got going on as well.
Okay, just hang on for 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. But while he gets himself situated and everything like that.
One thing I wanted to say is I Googled what's going on as far as this Medicare fraud is happening.
Right.
And as of April 15th, they are saying that scammers are calling to tell you that they need to get your Medicare number. If you get a call or a text or something, don't answer. If you don't know who's calling you, don't answer the phone. That's the best thing to do.
And I agree with you, because a lot of times they will call and try to get you to give information that you don't want to give and everything like that. I did have a question for you that actually surprised me, and I know that you, before I get to the gentleman with the efforts against the war and everything like that. But my question for you is, a lot of people don't really go the newspaper route, but you're in 100 newspapers. I know that you also mentioned being on TV as well, but why did you decide to carry it to the newspapers when so many people say we don't read and everything like that? And I am a trained journalist in the print journalism, but I just was really amazed when I saw that you were like in 100 papers around the country, when so many people are afraid that we're not even paying attention to the newspaper. So I was just wondering why you opted to go the newspaper route.
It's not that I opted to go. That's how I got started. I mean, you guys, with all everything that's going on internet wise, that's just started really in the last 10 years. Right. But I got started because I brought the book that I wrote, Medicare Survival Guide. I took the book and made the rules easy for understanding your Medicare and You handbook. And I came back to Texas. Let's see, it was September of 2010. And that's when I got on. That's when I got in the first newspaper here in the Houston area, that's all you had. I mean, the newspapers went to everybody. Now everything's going online. Now you got TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all of that.
Right.
And I'm not as much in the internet, but give me a year and I will be all over the place. But that's how I got started, because someone called Social Security and got the wrong information that cost him over $10,000. They told him he could cancel his Part B. He used the wrong word. He used company insurance. He had retirement benefits, not company insurance. Had they said retirement benefits, I would have said, don't cancel your Part B. And they said, sign the back of your card and turn it in. He didn't want to pay his Part B premium. Went to the hospital, had a stent put in his heart, and his Cigna plan did not pay because he had Part B. He didn't have Part B of Medicare. He'd already canceled it. And he was in his window that he could enroll in Medicare. Had he waited 2 months, he would have had to wait a year and had none of the benefits for what Part B charges or what Part B covers for Medicare.
And I know that you said it impacts a lot of people, because you even mentioned that a NASA engineer who helped with Neil Armstrong on the moon was hit by this issue as well. So I know that you have that story.
Me, haven't you?
You do my research. I'm a girl.
Yeah. I had someone down here in Houston. I'm asking the gentleman, what do you do? And he said he was a rocket scientist that worked for NASA. That's in Clear Lake. Mm-hmm. And he was there the day that Neil Armstrong got on the moon. Well, if they can't understand how to get on Medicare, he had wonderful benefits. He was working for A&M as an engineer, and he didn't know what to do. I knew exactly all of his aspects of what he needed to do. But if they can put Neil Armstrong on the moon and not understand the rules, the average person gets just blown away with everything. And I'm sure your father, your priest person down there, he's had a lot of people that have I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're Catholic or you're Jewish or you're Muslim or Republican or Democrat. It affects everybody the same way, even if, you don't pray or believe in Jesus. And let me tell you something, I pray every day. Yeah. He's made a whole difference in my life.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He's definitely very important in everything along those lines. There's no doubt about that at all. And you said that there are 3 common Medicare enrollment scenarios that cause problems and everything like that. So before we get to the minister and all along those lines, share a little bit about what those problems are. And like I said, people can go to your website and get some of these informations, include a easy to understand language and everything like that. So share a little bit about some of these common scenarios.
When you're turning 65, then that's what was happening with Jim Davis. He was turning 65 and getting on Medicare. That's how his got started. You can be turning 65. You can be someone who's leaving employer benefits. That's very important. Okay, so that's your SEP, special enrollment period. And then you have someone that never signed up. They say, I don't need it. I don't pay. I don't get sick. Next thing you know, they got cancer. Now they've got to sign up for Medicare. You have Medicare's general enrollment period, which is from January 1st through March 31st. That has just ended. So if a person did not enroll in Medicare when they were supposed to, they got to wait until next January and enroll, and just keep their fingers crossed and pray that it doesn't bring them over. And it looks like you got a Rick guy down here.
I turned 65 last year, and you're going to spend a lot of time on the phone with medical providers. You're going to be scrutinizing bills to figure out. I had excellent insurance via Writers Guild before I turned 65. Now Medicare is my primary, Writers Guild is secondary, but medical providers don't. I've got a ton of doctors. They all have to be informed to make Medicare your primary. Otherwise, you're going to get hit with it's a thicket. And I'm lucky enough to have a wife who's willing to do all the work to figure out this very complicated system and spend hours on hold. Just yesterday, I was talking to my wife saying, how many people, I need an MRI every, like, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months just to, and it takes so much messing around to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of coverage. I wonder how many people die because they're unwilling to spend hours on the phone with customer service to get stuff straightened out, and then they just put off tests and stuff, and their issues get out of control.
How many people? I can't give you an answer on that. I'm sure there's a whole lot that really do not understand how to navigate the Medicare system. But you're lucky that you have benefits through an employer. I mean,
We've got, like, I think it saved my life. If I didn't have decent insurance from my employer, I wouldn't have had some of the tests I had done, and problems I caught early wouldn't have been caught.
Well, I can probably make your wife's life a little simpler. If I knew what your network is, or who, you want a PPO, you really want a PPO versus an HMO, because an HMO, you're giving the control to the insurance company and not to yourself. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, like my insurer is most insurers are not great, that they want to turn you down for stuff. I've been lucky enough to have an insurer that Anthem Blue Cross in California, they seem to be okay with okaying, most of the stuff I've asked for.
Well, the doctors know how to submit it. I mean, I just tell your wife to give me a call and we'll sit down and talk.
Yeah, we got that number going across the 832 number and going across the screen and everything like that. So we've got that going across as well, the info at Tony Says and everything like that. Sir, share a little bit about what you've got going on. Because like I said, I've been really impressed with the work that the Archbishop of Canterbury has been doing, as well as the Pope, even though they seem to be at odds with the president and all along those lines. But share a little bit about this work that you've got, because we've got so many wars every time I turn around. Even when I do these news briefs, I hear about wars not just in Europe, like the Ukrainian war, and in the Middle East, but also wars in Africa, wars in Asia, wars in a number of other places, including some of the genocides that are taking place in some of the African nations. So definitely just share a little bit about the work that you've been doing.
Sure. Thank you very much. Priests Against Genocide is actually part of a wider group of peace activists, various groups that are trying to confront the very issue that you're talking about, Mark, trying to confront the issue of widespread, not just personal violence, but systemic violence and actual geopolitical violence throughout the world. And as you point out, it's getting worse. That's the sad, tragic part. And Pope Francis said that the Third World War is happening piecemeal. It's not declared, but it's happening all over the place. Our group started in Italy last year in September. About 120 priests walked out on the streets to begin to confront the issue of violence in Palestine, particularly among the Gazan people and also in the people in the West Bank, where it is clear that at this point that there is ethnic cleansing, if not genocide, that is unfolding, and we can't just sit by or stand by and do nothing. We want to speak out. And so that group in Italy spread then to 54 countries, and we are now about 120 priests here in the United States. I'm speaking here now of Catholic priests, but it could be it could be other kinds of groups as well, and there are several other groups that are working at this issue. It's basically the fundamental issue of, do we want to have peace through victory related to militarism, or do we want to have peace through justice, through a long-term process of transformation? And it's going to take nothing less than, I would say, almost like a seismic shift in consciousness because our present approach to how to solve international conflict is basically the same way Americans do it, and that is to pull out a gun, as we've seen in the last, sadly, in the last, not, well, I was going to say the last week, and that's intense enough, but in the last years, we've become a militarized culture.
No, there's no doubt we've become a militarized culture and everything like that. But what is your take? Because some people would say that peace is almost impossible to achieve unless we have the second coming to bring up religion and all along those lines. And I know a lot of people were encouraged by what the Buddhists were doing when they had that walk to DC and all along those lines. But I do know that there are a lot of people that are pessimistic, to put it mildly, about the notion of having peace in our lifetime and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that, because I am a big fan, and I've said it on this show before, of an old song by John Lennon called Imagine, where they said imagine a world with, actually it said no religion, but I think that it was thinking of that in a different kind of perspective than I think most people interpret that to mean and everything like that. But that's just my own idea around what those lyrics meant. But I do think that he was talking about a very peaceful world and a world that did not have all of the various conflicts that I talk about every day on the weekdays and have been talking about for the last 5 or 6 years on here on Pod TV. But what is your take on this notion of us ever being able to achieve peace?
There are a lot of people who would say that seeking peace is unrealistic, that it's not something that's ever going to happen. And I think that ultimate perfect peace in a human situation obviously probably is impossible. But there's a lot we can do to try to turn things around at this point, because at this stage of things, as Martin Luther King pointed out in his 1967 presentation at Riverside Church, it's a question of either nonviolence or non-existence. And when we say that peacemaking is not realistic, well, how realistic is it to be on the brink of nuclear war? How realistic is it to watch the world kind of going up in flames right now? Isn't it more realistic to begin to find ways to, I guess you could say, resolve conflict in a different way? It isn't just fight or flight. There's another possibility. There's flow. I mean, we can find a way, I think, through diplomacy. And you look at places like the Philippines, where people power actually made a difference. And it may come to that in our own country, that we need to have, I believe that nonviolent resistance, nonviolence is not a passive stance. It's a very active reaching out to reconcile. Rick, did you have something?
Yeah, you said that this movement originated with priests in Italy.
Yes, the Priests Against Genocide did. That's correct.
This whole situation reminds me of a century ago, where fascism arose in 1922 in Italy. And I'm sure that there were tens of thousands of priests back then trying to negotiate, trying to figure out how to get us through a terrible era. And we're in a similar era where the whole world seems angry. We're inflamed by new means of communication. In the 20s, radio was new, public relations were new, and they were used to manipulate people. Now we have the internet, we have AI, we have social media. We're not resistant, where propaganda is extra effective with new media. And it's tough. I'm very glad that the church has a Chicago Pope who can at least talk back to the president in very, straightforward language.
Yeah, he definitely can reach him in his own language, everything like that. I was wondering, because I have a friend of mine that is into religion. He's a minister. I have a couple of minister friends and everything like that. But there's this whole notion of liberation theology, which is this notion of bringing in change, and sometimes positive change, through the use of theology. So I was wondering is this something that you would consider yourself a liberation theologist, or is this something separate from your own belief system? Because I know even having gone to a Jesuit university, I went to Marquette and everything like that, that I had a professor that was not a liberation theologist. He was definitely a very conservative, a big fan of C.S. Lewis and everything like that. But I had another professor that would probably fall more into the class of liberation theology. But I'm just wondering, in your own philosophy, do you consider yourself a liberation theologist?
I do. I would trace not just my own person in terms of my outlook and my convictions. I grew up very influenced by the Second Vatican Council, which reached out to particularly the poor, the global South, the concerns of the poverty there, the economic inequality, all of the ways that in which human beings are not equal. And obviously we'll never totally be equal. But again, it's a question of not having 19 billionaires as we have them in the United States that take up 16% of our global, of our national income. And so, yes, I come out of that liberation theology tradition, which is basically the roots for that are simply the gospel, and back to forgiving enemies, reaching out to the poor, and standing by the vulnerable in times of real crises. And go ahead.
You had a quote that I'd love to hear more about and everything like that, because I know it was some time back you said, once again, the U.S. church finds itself at a Catholic moment, and I'm not sure what a Catholic moment is, but you decided to define it as a graced opportunity to read the signs of the times, to listen, pray, and discern by advocating for the oppressed and drawing on a foundation of gospel nonviolence. This movement can become a prophetic and voice in the ongoing struggle for human dignity and rights. And I know a lot of people are very concerned about this notion of dignity and rights. We've been talking even about Iran and the notion of them having a nuclear bomb and everything like that. So I just wondered what you meant by that quote and some of your thoughts around this notion, because we have a lot of countries that are trying to obtain a bomb versus not trying to get a bomb.
Well, there is going on right at this point a treaty against the production and deployment of nuclear weapons, the TPNW, and that movement is beyond religion. It's countries coming together to decide that this is simply not possible. It's not realistic. It really is mad, mutual assured destruction. And we have to find a different way to try to resolve international and geopolitical, the kinds of geopolitical conflicts. I see, Sasha, you have.
Hello. I would like to point out that concept of mutual assured destruction existed only at the time when on the opposite sides were United States and Soviet Union and Russia. Okay, in no other confrontations, concept of mutual assured destruction would be applicable. By the way, no mutual assured destruction concept would be played out in fights between countries like, for example, Russia and Ukraine. Russia has superior and second in the world nuclear arsenal. Ukraine has none. And the concept is not applicable in this situation. For example, now US war against Iran. If Iran would have nuclear arsenal, United States would never attack Iran because of the retaliation and possible mutual assured destruction. So in fact, that present situation, in my opinion, would lead to a proliferation of nuclear devices and arms all over the world, because it's the consequences of not having nuclear devices available to you would make you extremely vulnerable to any country who look like United States would just bully you and without any good reason would simply attack you and lead to your surrender simply because you would be unable to resist such an attack. With nuclear arms, you would not only resist, nobody would even think about attacking you. Does US think about attacking North Korea? No, because North Korea has and demonstrated that it has nuclear arsenal and possibly a means of delivery. So that makes it absolutely no for United States and many other countries for that reason. So in that case, also remember since 1945, when the first atomic bombs were used, until now, there were no cases of using nuclear arms so far. So in fact, nuclear arms, it's a great system of keeping countries away from attacking each other and having wins. So right now we are in the period when strong global countries using this today's situation when they can be unpunishedly attack weaker and smaller countries. They are doing so, same as Russia against Ukraine, same as US against Iran, and so on and on and on.
Hey, Father John, just along those same lines, what is your take when there are this notion that some countries are afraid of their total destruction? I know that's part of what the conversation is around both Israel and Palestine, because in my mind, both of those countries are afraid of their mass destruction and everything like that and being annihilated and everything like that. And you kind of alluded to that earlier. Now, I will say that there are some that would say that it's more the Muslim community against Israel and then vice versa. But there are others that would argue that it is the opposite right now and everything like that. But I just wanted your take on that being part of the problem is that there are countries that are afraid that if they don't maintain arms, that they will be destroyed. We can even go to Africa and look at Ethiopia and Eritrea and some of the other countries like that, where there is this notion that if I don't defend myself, then the other country will eradicate me.
Well, I think this relates to the previous speaker, Sasha's point. I think that countries that do not have the nuclear weapons will now strive to get them if they can, and so the arms race only increases; it doesn't lessen. And as that grows, I mean, the option here is. We've never, as a human experience, we've never created a weapon we haven't used. And the United States obviously has already used the atomic weapon, and now we're far beyond that. So I guess the question arises is, what's the best way to prevent the destruction of civilization? I mean, that's what President Trump talked about in relationship to Iran, that he would destroy it. And that's almost like threatening a war crime, even the fact that he would threaten that. So I understand how nations that do not have the nuclear weapons would feel very vulnerable and wish to have them. But I think the argument of having them, and I would, this is an honest disagreement at this point, that the buildup of the nuclear arms race is worse if we just keep it going rather than following the treaty. It's like 130 nations have signed on to the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons. That's already something that is in process of taking place geopolitically.
But this is a horrible position. Sorry, I'd like to interject. That would open up the doors for every bigger, stronger army or country attacking weaker and smaller country, because without nuclear deterrent, there is absolutely no way to defend itself. And the old world order, which was in place by 1945, and which US was one of the creator of that new world order. Now it's broken, that world order, and now any country which is bigger and stronger than the other one can absolutely unpunishingly attack the weaker country and take it over. I like, actually personally, I like position of Israel. When Golda Meir was asked if Israel has nuclear weapons, she says no, but if needed, we will use them.
We were on not a great trajectory, but at least a positive one when in the 60s, the US and the Soviet Union each had about 6,000 nuclear warheads. And through decades of arms reduction talks, that 6,000 was reduced to about 1,700 on each side, which is still way too many. But now you've got two leaders of the US and Russia who are disinclined to engage in any kind of arms reduction.
Yeah, you definitely got that going on and everything like that. The other thing that I was just curious, Father Ahegel, that you run into is, do you run into problems with people listening to the opinions of the Catholic Church and the Catholic religion because of some of its own history, both history in terms of being supporters of war, but also some other negative histories as well? And we don't have to go into them, but we can also mention Epstein and all along those lines. But I just wonder, but there's some things that are playing into the notion when you go out to the public to speak to people that might not be as easy for people to grapple with because of some of that negative history that the Catholic Church has had. And I'm saying that as one that is not a practicing religious person. I don't claim to be religious of any sort, consider myself more spiritual and everything, but I did go to a Jesuit university, so I do understand some of the Catholic history and all along those lines.
Yes, if you went to Marquette, you would have been a Jesuit trained, Mark. So
Yes,
the Catholic Church does not have a great record. And I can understand why the people of Israel, they would see something like priests against genocide, and they'd say, "Are you kidding? There were all kinds of priests back in the history of Christianity that were very anti-Jewish to an extent of pogroms and cooperating with groups that were trying to destroy the Jewish people." So we do not have a good record in that regard. But my concern, I guess, is that it's only in the last, I would say, century and a half that the Catholic Church has begun to say, wait a minute, the just war theory is not in itself something that is viable anymore because of the kinds of weapons we have, the kinds of ways that we have to destroy each other. So is there really a possibility that we could have a just war if ground troops went into Iran, which I think would be we already think that what we've done is a crazy political stance to invade Iran just by bombing, and all the ways that we've destroyed a lot of lives and a lot of the superstructure and understructure of Iran at this point. And so I think that the fundamental sense that we need to belong to a different kind of movement here, I guess I just want to say, isn't there a better way?
Yeah,
Isn't there a way that we could, recognizing the failures of religion in the past, and let's face it, religion is a major form of war. Religion is a major form of tension. If you take the Israeli and the Palestinian issue, it's underneath it is ethnic experiences and ethnic reality, but also religion.
Father John, but along those same lines, and I'm not trying to be in a tit for tat kind of conversation, but like I said, I did go to that Jesuit university. What do you say to those people that are more conservative? I consider myself liberal to moderate and everything like that, but they will say that you are against war when the Catholic Church has had its own history with some of the abuses that took place with young people in the church and everything like that. So there are people that will make that argument as well. They'll tell you that you're arguing against war, but there was a war against young people with some of the ministers that were abusive. I'll just leave it at that.
Can you just frame that again, Mark? What would be the issue?
I mean, I'm asking, like, yeah, I know that some people that are hearing the conversation around Catholics against war are then saying, but you're not against like some of the abuses that have took place with women and young juveniles within the Catholic Church and everything like that. So that would be an argument that people would give against your argument against war, is that there have been some tensions within the Catholic Church and things that y'all did not support. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but I just wanted to hear, because that's been more in the news more recently.
Well, sure. I think that, again, the Catholic Church claims to stand by human rights, and it does in many places and in many ways. I'm proud of that. But there's also ways in which the Catholic Church, I think, comes close to depriving people of rights. I mean, you speak of women's ordination, for instance,
Right.
and obviously it isn't a right to be ordained. That's something that I didn't have a right to be ordained 62 years ago. It was something that I felt called to and that the church recognized. But on the other hand, to say that because you are the gender, that you are a woman, that you cannot be ordained, seems to me to be not consistent.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that and everything like that. Just really quickly, and I have to teach, and Rick and Sasha may have other questions as well. We've got about another 8 minutes, and they may have some for Tony as well, with the whole notion of what's going on with Medicare fraud and everything like that. But I do have to tease you, because I do agree with, because I've said it on the other shows as well, that having gone to that Jesuit university, I joked that I had 2 minors and everything like that, because at Marquette, you are required to have whatever you decide to minor in, which in my case was poli-sci while majoring in journalism. But you also required, and it's been decades since I went to school, but you were required to have about 21 hours of theology and philosophy. I think it was 12 hours of theology and 9 hours of philosophy, or I might have it vice versa, but it was still a minor in religion. And I think that is still what they practice now. It's been a minute since I've been back to the university and everything like that, but I think that they still practice that as they do at other Jesuit universities as well, and other Catholic universities. So you wind up getting 2 minors whether you want one or not.
I think you're correct. It kind of goes. It comes with the territory in those instances. Yes,
no
you're
doubt.
correct. Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Rick, did you
I
have
don't know
any more?
Rick has,
Both our guests are addressing the Catholic Church as a complex, organization that's been around for 2,000 years, that it has mechanisms to change and address modern issues, but it's a little clunky. Ditto for Medicare, where a lot of the 4 parts, Part A, Part B, all that is a system that's wrestling with that is imperfect at addressing needs and change.
Yeah.
So you got 2 unwieldy systems, and people wrestling with to make them better.
Yeah, definitely. You've got people that are trying to make it a better system, but how do you deal with that, both of you? Because it is an unwieldy system. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape. I know that even on some of our other shows, like Economic Monday, we talk about the bureaucratic red tape and everything like that. So it seems like both of these systems, whether we're dealing with the defense industry, which is what the whole thing around nuclear power would be, or whether we're dealing with economics and health, which would be a couple of government agencies as well, that there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that y'all have to deal with, and also trying to get the senators and the quote unquote leaders to listen. So I'll start with you, Tony, but I also want to hear from Father John as well. How do y'all address that? Because there's a lot of clunkiness, as Rick was saying, and all along those lines, and there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape that you have to fight.
As far as I'm concerned, you have to know what the changes are that happen every year. You have to stay up with it. Medicare's Part D has changed drastically. And I have people that sign up for a prescription drug plan, a Part D plan, and never change it. And some have gone from $6 a month, and now they're $94 a month. And maybe the person is only on a generic drug and they never change it. You got to get in the game and know what's going on. And a lot of parents, and I'm sure the father over here sees it, and I don't know what is your first name?
John.
John.
John. Yeah.
So I know that John over here sees it with his church. You've got the people that are older, but they won't let their kids that are older help them. They want to control the whole situation. And you got to learn how to get in the game and help your parents so that if something happens and they have a bad medical need, guess who pays for it? You do. Because they picked the wrong plan. They let somebody that was walking the neighborhood come into their house, and the next thing you know, they're on a plan that they didn't even know their parents got on. So
yeah, you got to, anybody with our age, I'm in my 60s, we often have parents in their 80s, and you got to exercise more. I don't know, you got to watch them more, because they are a vulnerable population to both bureaucratic confusion and scammers, because older people often have a lot of assets and are, sometimes are in early mental decline, and people love to prey on them. And you
definitely.
gotta
Definitely. That's where the kids need to get in the game, and you've got to learn how to take control. I had a mother that had dementia. I saw her driving down the street going 20 miles an hour. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to cause a wreck. I came home and took her keys out of her car. And she had no idea where they went, how they got lost or whatever. That's how I stopped her from driving.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So you got to learn how to get control, but not, you just got to get in the game and know how to take control of your parents.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because if you don't, you're going to lose all the money. You're going to lose everything.
Yeah, no doubt about that and everything. As we get ready to wrap up, we got just a couple of more minutes to go and everything. Father John, can you tell folks how they can reach you and how they can get in touch with you? I had earlier Tony's banner going across, but definitely if you can just tell them verbally how you can be gotten in touch with, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Yes, you can get in touch with me. My email is simply John L. Heagle. That's JOHNL HEAGLE @gmail.com.
Appreciate that and everything like that, and all on those lines. And folks can get in touch with both of you. And like I said, I'll put the banner across for Tony as well, and folks can get her book as well as some of the information that she's got available, and all along those lines. As we get ready to wrap up, if y'all both and if Rick wants to share as well, want to give your final thoughts of things that we might not have talked about that you wish we had, or things that you would like to share with our listener audience. And then we've got the Ukraine, Russia, China show that's coming up in about a minute. But I'll start with you, John, and then end with Tony and everything like that. Rick may want to jump in as well, but anything that you want to share with our listening audience as we get ready to close out.
I just want to say thank you to the opportunity to share this conversation with the four of you. Actually, it was the five of us at one point, and that it's a real opportunity to advocate for the vulnerable, especially for the people that do not have a voice, do not have power in a dominative society and culture and world.
Appreciate that. You, Tony, anything you want to share before we get ready to end it and all along those lines?
All I can tell people is just learn how to understand Medicare, and don't just answer. If you have somebody call you and you don't know who it is, hang up. And
Yep.
what I wanted to know is, where's John located? What part of the country? Or is he
in Oregon, Tony?
Oh, you're in Oregon. Okay,
Yes.
well, you really got up early to do this.
So, and Rick's in California, so he got up early too, because Rick's all the way in California. He's in the Los Angeles area, and I'm in North Carolina.
I want to recommend a book, Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson, which explains how our system of protecting against accidental nuclear exchange is threadbare and often depends on luck and the goodwill of just random military personnel. There was a Soviet colonel in like 1987 who averted nuclear war. He got a message that said that the U.S. had launched dozens of nukes and against Russia, and he thought, I'm hoping this is a glitch and I'm not going to hit the red button to send dozens of nukes back at him. And it was only because of the good sense and restraint of one Soviet officer that we didn't have a nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah, great information. Appreciate both of you, and we're going to get off of here and get to some of our other shows. But I appreciate both of you being on, and look forward to having you on in the future shows as well. But definitely appreciate both of you for being on and sharing this important information. So right now we're getting to get on out of here. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.